Welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. Problem solvers have problems too. So here at Behind the Podium, I, Jared Cohen, and my co-host Alexander Ellis discuss the struggles, philosophies, demands, and practices of the coach, or said more broadly, health and wellness practitioner. To provide quality coaching is to enhance someone's life in an everlasting and unfolding way. This is not easy and requires a lot of due diligence and self-mastery on the part of the coach to be able to perform. So without further ado, join us as we dig deeper into the depths of the coach's mind. Today, we go behind the podium with a California native, a surfer, skateboarder, breakdancer, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu competitor, and military veteran who served in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Pacific Fleet operations. This guest of ours is a doctor of chiropractic medicine, and he has his Master's of Science in Exercise and Sports Science. It was due to his personal experience in surgery and rehab with his own hip injury that led him to pursue chiropractic care and his infinite pursuit of coaching that underscores individualization in contrast to anything resembling a cookie-cutter approach. Without further ado, I and Alex are super honored to welcome Dr. Ben Ramos, not Ramos, aka Mr. FlowForce Rehab, to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. Ben, welcome.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know Jared was saying that you just spent the weekend filling your brain with knowledge, which both of us love to do. So tell us about the course you did this past weekend.
So this past weekend, it was the third year in a row going for an event put on by Dr. Craig Liebenson. He's a chiropractor out of LA, but it was at Exos in Phoenix. For those that don't know about Exos, they specialize in working with top tier athletes. I think it was close to like 1/3 of the people that made it in the draft this year did their combine training with Exos. They have locations all over the place. This weekend while I was there was just a whole bunch of Olympians or would-be Olympian track stars. I mean, they deal with like high level athletes. And so every year there's an event there put on by one of my mentors, Dr. Liebenson, and he just tries to bring in a whole bunch of amazing people in different fields from across the spectrum of rehab to performance, and a whole bunch of people from all over the country. I only see them once a year, and it's at this event, and we just kind of learn together and drink together and conversate, try to expand ourselves, you know.
That's awesome.
Is it an invite only?
Can we come next year?
You can totally come. It's not invite only by any means whatsoever. It's actually the more the merrier. I think it's limited to about 40 people, 40 signups. It usually sells out every year, but yeah, everybody's welcome.
And you mentioned yesterday that you were in that post mind jumble state. Which Alex and I have actually talked about in a previous episode, let alone in other non-recorded venues. I'm curious where you are at today, and actually kind of bigger than that, based on all the kind of continuing education you've had, do you have some kind of a system for how you like to sort through the stuff you'll get, especially when it's coming at you more immersively over like a weekend?
I do have a system, but I don't always follow the system. Like, we all have our ideals of what we want to follow, how we're going to do it. But I would say that really the side conversations throughout the weekend and the conversation on the drive home from Arizona and then on the train ride home from Fullerton was the biggest part that helps you kind of filter the message. And I think that that'll probably continue throughout the week. I spent some time talking to one of my buddies about it again last night. But yeah, that'll probably be the easiest way. But you guys, like you mentioned earlier, once you go through such a process like this, and this weekend wasn't like one course with one thing to show. It was, I mean, there was Dan Paff, you know, like a track coach. If you guys don't know who that is, Dan Pfaff. He's been in the game for 45 years, working at the highest level of track and field. You know, has worked with many Olympians. But he's a guy who runs Altus. He was there. Like I said, my mentor, Dr. Craig Liebenson, another guy named Guido Van Rysegem, ATC, worked in professional baseball, does research out of Oregon State now. Giancarlo Russo, he's a PT who focuses in what's called the VOITO approach, developmental approach to physiotherapy. And he also focuses in hypnosis. That was interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Anna Hartman, she used to run the therapy program at Exos, and she does her own thing. And Chris Duffin, Brian Carroll. You know, Brian Carroll holds held the record. I think he still does at 1185 for the squat. And I think he did that at I forget his weight exactly, but I was looking at some of his records, but it's just crazy. So there's the whole spectrum of people who are there.
Wow.
So like trying to filter that out is just like,
right.
It's hard.
Yeah, no, totally. Especially when, you know, you have your own context, you know, based on your own clinical practice, you know, and like what is going to be most useful for you, not only just like in your own learning, but also like on a day-to-day basis, you know, like and like you said, everyone there is you know, has different backgrounds and different practices, so they have to be responsible for how they're going to make the most of that.
Yeah, that's a really important point. That's super important because like there's so much information there that you would assume that wouldn't even pertain to me. So like Chris Duffin, you know, like him and Brian Carroll were going over the big three lifts. They're going over the squat, you know, and the bench and the deadlift. And I'm by no means a power lifter.
Yeah.
But hearing from guys that push ungodly amounts of weight, the nuances about it. I mean, the truth is, if they have to be perfect if they're deadlifting 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, form has to be perfect. There's no such thing as a little hitch in your giddy up with that weight because you get hurt really bad.
Right.
And so listening to them and their way of pulling, you know, Chris Duffin did, I think, 1,004 or 1,005 pounds for almost 3 reps, like within the last month. And he talked about his journey to get there. But I mean, if you're doing that and you mess up, you know, that's a big deal. So hearing his expertise on that was pretty amazing. But, you know, how do I filter that back to the way I help the patients that I see? Because I'm truly a clinician, you know, and my specialty is in treating patients and whatnot. So how do I filter that back to that, you know? And it's hard to lose sight of it. It's easy to lose sight of that and not filter it correctly for what my job and what my role is, which, you know.
And as far as your client base, are you working mostly with high-level athletes or everything in between?
No, I'm working actually with more of the active population, more weekend warrior type. I do work with competitive athletes as well, but I would say that my focus is on working with the weekend warrior types. And it also comes from a business perspective. I mean, there's not a lot of you know, high level athletes out there, just like really active competitors on the whole, like people that lives revolve around competition because, I mean, it's different. So I have people that I work with, a couple strength coaches I work with, and they solely work with competitive athletes. These guys their life revolves around competition. Like they're not doing any other job. They're either a student and they're competing or they're a pro. And it's a whole different ball game. But I get a lot of, I have a passion for helping the active weekend warrior because of what they deal with, like, you know, the life and the lifestyle and carrying kind of both hats, you know, the competitor hat and the normal, you know, day-to-day folk with the job hat. So, yeah.
Is there a type of client you would not want to work with? Like a personality, or maybe if you have, maybe you have like personal experience with clients that didn't gel well, or didn't match with your, what I'm going to say is positive, for like this kind of deeper approach, that you want to go deep, and rightfully so, like you've put in the man hours, and you continue, and you're passionate about the details. So I'm curious, I guess, more in a more loaded question way, if there are those clients that were less willing to go deep, and maybe looking more for a quick fix, that you had to kind of say, hey, maybe this isn't going to work.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good question. I like helping everybody.
Okay.
With that, like any person that I can help, it's a challenge to work with different populations, but every population is a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, I chose this because I have a passion for helping people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I have a focus on the population I want to help. And like I said, I want to help the active population. My ideal person to work with is somebody that is either currently active or is willing to become active. As much as I would want to help somebody go and convince somebody to get off the couch and put the potato chips away, like that, getting somebody to go from there to willing to devote time and energy into being active is a big task and job. Not say I'm unwilling to do it. I'm more than willing to do it, but I would much prefer to focus on somebody that's already overcome that hump, because that's when I can really my skills shine more in that arena than they do there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would go as far as say your skills would be kind of a waste of that person, like all the education you've had, I feel like they you would be more worthwhile further down the line, if after they've sort of experienced whatever that activeness would be.
That's totally true, but at the same time, that's a huge victory.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a huge victory to get somebody from that point to over the hump. But I mean, I still have to look out for myself and my energy levels, because I mean, like anybody, like any coach or any person that really cares about what they're doing, they're going to be wearing the wants, needs, and concerns of the people that they serve 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't matter if you're not in the office or not in the gym. So some of those people carry a lot of weight. I mean, that it would be hard for me to bring with me home, and so. Yeah,
no, that's great.
I was just going to ask, is this something that from day one you recognize? Because I know we've spoken, Jared and I, before about, selecting the perfect client, and I think there is also some sort of self-selection that happens based on, your interests, the people who are attracted to you. But did it take some trial and error to figure out how best to work with all types of people?
Most definitely. And it's still a process. I would say, I started out with bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, thinking that I was going to work with just athletes, I'm going to be a straight, I'm going to just work with athletes. I think most of us, start off in there, I'm just going to work with athletes. I'm going to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Everybody I work with is going to be working their way to the podium. But not only has that changed, but it's become more fulfilling, and I've kind of seen myself more in the process of learning who I would want to work with, and who do I vibe with more, and who can I make an impact with. So yeah, it's always changing, even now, and I've had this talk with some of my mentors, and as they develop, and I'm only 33 now. When I'm 45, I might start working with more people that are in the 45 masters level athlete range, and relate more to them and have that connection better. So yeah,
that's that's an interesting point about just reflecting how your work reflects where you're currently at, both chronologically and then also topic wise. I know so kind of peeling back a little bit, I've been working a lot with Ben, and that is how I got to know Ben. And just going back to what I was saying, based on the work that you and I have been doing, that has been sort of my headspace. So so much of the work that I've been doing with clients is kind of a recycling of that, because that's just sort of how I best learn and how I, can process it for me. And it's most authentic because I'm totally in it, and so again, even beyond just the chronological aspect, what are you currently doing, or what are you currently reading about, and how is that changing the kind of work you want to be doing? And I think, we're fortunate in this coaching field to have more bandwidth in being able to orchestrate that.
No doubt. And I think being a coach crosses all spectrums, right? You guys already know this and probably talked about this, being a coach it involves a father is a coach, a mother is a coach, anything you're doing where you have the potential to lead somebody, even if it's just one person, you're a coach. And you have to respect that and honor and be humble in that role, right? Yeah,
without a doubt. I love it. Transcend. Let the coaching title transcend far and wide. So going back a little bit, as I was saying, just to give the listeners some context, I have been dealing with some chronic pains for quite some time now, and Ben has been my latest and greatest mentor and coach through this process, and so it was a true honor to, as I was saying, working with clients and recycling what Ben's been teaching me about my own movement, to then even be able to say, hey Ben, would love to have you come on the show and get to pick your brain in a more formal manner. And I just want to add to that a concept that I kind of birthed when Alex and I were about to start recording our first episode a little more than a year ago. Was I was thinking about, what are the core values of a coach? And so I came up with this 3 X's theory, which consists of experience, experimentation, and example. And the needs and the requirements for a coach to be continually overlapping in those different domains. So not only are you continuing to add to your experience, with continuing education or just actual clinical hours, but you're also involved in that experimentation process. You're committed to being able to actually take what you've learned, apply it, try it on yourself, embody it before you ask your clients to try it on. And then the sort of overarching domain, and the one that really ties the other two together, is this example. How good are you at living that, and upholding that standard, and then also being honest about the struggles, like, you mentioned in the beginning. It's like, hey, yeah, I have this ideal systematic way in which I'd like to reflect and distill all the great stuff that I learned this past weekend. But, hey, I got back Monday morning and I had to see Jared, and, so my my schedule got derailed a little bit. And so I wanted to explicitly present this 3 X's concept in favor of saying that, I think Ben is a great example of these 3 X's. And so with that, I'm curious, what are coaches or mentors that come to mind for you that you think really embody the ability to consistently live within those 3 domains?
First, I just want to say that coming to work on Monday and seeing you, I'm living my dream. So you didn't derail anything. You were right there where you're supposed to be. Didn't derail nothing, man. None of that weekend stuff matters if I don't get to come and help people and see you, and I appreciate the compliment there. But I think you're dead on, experience and experimentation example. you have to bring that to the table. And I think it's also, you can say like, from a coaching standpoint, but that's also passion,
Yeah.
Like you have passion to serve this population, passion to serve these people, you're going to work within your, what you have in order to be the best you can be for the person in front of you. Right. And that's all going to come with it. But on the same token, like something that I've been learning a lot about myself lately and from mentors and stuff is that by the way, and I'm a huge fan of the whole understanding that you need mentors. I mean, and that you need people to work with and you need people to learn from. And I have many mentors myself and people that I'm just so grateful for that have helped me and continue to help me like all the time. But also at the same time, understanding that nobody's perfect. Like this is something that I've struggled with in the past. And when you look for a mentor, you look for them, you look up to them so much that in some cases, like if you find a flaw, it's easy to be disenchanted away from them,
Yeah. Great point.
And lose sight of all this other greatness that you have the opportunity to learn from them.
Yeah.
And you kind of just, and I found myself doing this. Like I was saying, this is something that's dear to me that I've been going over like the last 3 months and revisiting some people that it's just like, like I can learn so much from this person. This person's not perfect, but we have to accept that. God forbid if somebody that looked up to me knew some of my flaws, and like judged me on those, like, But yeah, no, I think that's important, man. I think it's important, all those that you said, but I also think it's important that we come back to the understanding that the person that we're looking up to is a human being,
Definitely. Yeah. And don't throw it away.
Learning from that aspect too, though, like learning what that can do to somebody, I guess is what I'm saying, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought that up. Especially to just kind of bring it back down to earth. And like you said, being able to not write it off and reframe it more as just a learning opportunity. I think for me, sometimes I become more critical within the example domain, where I feel like, tons of experience, they're definitely, experimenting, but I'm not sure they're actually really living and breathing this thing. And I can be quick to become turned off by that. But more importantly for my own development, right, is to not write that off.
Yeah, no, that's a super great point too. Because we all are human, and even those who to keep sight of what really is important, which is the knowledge that they have that they can share with us and impart upon us. And not the fact that maybe they eat Snickers or like something.
Yeah.
Or even in the approach directly, like in some cases, like in the approach directly, like there's people that I've learned from that have an incredible amount of knowledge, let's say in manual therapy, or in rehab, but then they don't have what I would idolize as much as I do in the rehab standpoint, in the manual therapy standpoint, or vice versa, or I feel like they're missing a piece, but still being able to and then watching them do cases or something like that, and still being able to put my bias aside, my personal bias and understanding aside, and be able to accept and learn from them,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's happening more and more as I continue to learn, as I continue to get exposed to more people and more folks, as I'm trying to learn, like in the beginning when you're starting to really go to these events, everything's gospel.
Yeah.
And then as you keep going to these kind of events and learning from people and reading in books and stuff like that, in the beginning it's hard to be like, this is what? Like, this is wrong. The rest of this is BS. Like, right. I can't accept any of it now.
Yeah.
But being able to put that aside and learn. So, and it's a battle still. So.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it too, true. In terms of the your own reflection of your growth. Because I think at times I've been aware of oh yeah, I have the ability to be critical now. This is cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm also very aware of other stages where I had no, ability to be critical, and it was just take it all in. and so being mindful of like the pros and the cons of that, it's like, that's good that, you can have some critique, but don't get carried away with that, and
Right. And that's easy.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing to do. It's easy. It's way easier to be all full of critiques and all full of skepticism than it is to be accepting and open of somebody and try to learn and filter it for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I find myself that way, especially in healthcare, and I consider myself very evidence-based, evidence-informed as far as that's concerned. I keep my nose in the literature all the time. But at the same time, like you can't let it run your life. Like you can't turn literature into another guru.
Yeah. Right. That's a good one-liner.
Just for reference, I got that from Michael Shacklock.
Okay.
Neurodynamics. He's a New Zealand guy, lives out in Australia. He's a genius, and he made that mention at a course I took a couple months ago, that in some cases the RCT is turning into the new guru.
Yeah. No, it's so crazy too. Like even just beyond the specific RCT, but just something that's like peer reviewed, like, and it's
Right.
formatted in that, wonderful introduction, procedure, methods, like, we're
Right.
quick to view that as the paper equivalent to the white coat,
Right.
and yeah, I mean, and falling, all of us, kind of falling victim to it, especially when it supports, what we are currently,
Yeah.
The point you're trying to make.
Yeah, currently
no,
driving
this is
home.
research. It's 100% true.
Yeah, and it's, I mean,
Confirmation bias
it's so hard
is
because
everyone's home.
so many people want, so many people on the like just sort of innocent bystander end of the spectrum. All they know is to try and trust somebody that has a doctor in their name, or that exists within some traditional view of authority. And so then those of us, somewhere in the middle of the continuum where, maybe we don't have a doctor, this or that, and now we're trying to kind of, take something and use it just to like get somebody moving in the right direction. We can easily get carried away with how we're holding that up in a manner that we wouldn't like when, someone else is doing it, especially in lieu of greater critical thinking and honoring a more individualized context.
Right. It's a difficult balance.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's always, research and books and articles, but especially when you're working with people one-on-one, there's a person standing in front of you. And they are, I always tell my students, like, you're a unique snowflake. Things will be different for you from everybody else just because you're you. And so approaching every situation with all of those elements of education and experience that you've brought into it, but then still seeing the whole person in front of you.
Right. And in the end of the day, nothing you read matters. Results is what matter. That's our job. Our job is results. Our job is not to do things according to what we think is one way or that way. Our job is to provide results. Like you said, the person in front of you is who you serve. Like we work for them.
Right.
Yeah.
We really don't work for ourselves. We don't work for the people that we want to. That we consider colleagues and like to impress. We work for the person in front of us, and I mean, damn, I'm results focused 100%, man. I don't need a good excuse to do something that's going to get a good get a result, But at the same time, there is that balance between what you're doing.
And I think like even going back to like the work you and I are doing, it's like results can be misleading, right? It's like especially when you're dealing with pain, and it's like, well, it feels good now, but like, what does that mean, in the 2 days from now? And so even just juggling that, and helping the client to process what is very subjective for them, and trying to understand like, I don't know, it's like, I'm so overloaded with data about how I'm feeling. Like at this point, it's really results become hard to appropriately categorize.
Right. Especially when the person that you're dealing with is in the middle of the forest, like they're standing in the middle of the forest, and it's your job to be able to, you're not experiencing what they are. It's your job to be able to see, to back up out of the trees and see the big picture and see the metrics, and understand what those numbers, like how they come, like this is what anybody, if they're experiencing a significant flare up, where in that moment, that's everything to them, but then if you can talk to them and reassure them and back up a little bit, and you're like, yeah, we're going to go through this. Like, I understand this, but then you remind them, like, you've gone from 4 flare-ups a week to a flare-up a month, a flare-up every 3 weeks or something like that, and remind them of that, and reassure them of their progress and that they've gotten through those before. And then, it's part of our job, right?
Yeah.
But it's difficult, like you said, conveying that message to somebody that is subjectively in a whirlwind currently.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. I'm curious for you, what you attribute to your high level of motivation to really honor all these different pieces and stay so committed to this pursuit of mastery for your craft. Has that always been a part of you, even just like looking back to, picking up whatever activity when you were 12 years old, or was there more of a turning point? Was there a particular example that really shifted that drive for you?
I was the guy that would switch around a lot from activities, but while I was in it, I was in it, like I was full bore and in it. So I experimented a lot, but I always, with different activities and stuff like that, or different passions, but I was mostly all in. I'm an immersive type of person, and it's a strength and a weakness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always kind of been that way. But as I've evolved as a person and really like found myself, I guess, over the time in school and stuff like that, I really found that my passion has been helping people one way or another, and yeah, it's just that's kind of where it's gone, So like, I guess what I would say is that when you have, and I would say that it came from the military mostly, because early on in the military, I was put in leadership positions, and personally, I just never been scared of being in that position. I'm scared, but I never said no. So being put in that position early and understanding the responsibility that you have for the people around you and being able to lead, that was huge to me. But also understanding the huge responsibility that you have. Like, it's not about you anymore. It has nothing to do with you. Like as much as I love learning for myself, it ain't for me. It's for the people that come into my office. And if I feel as though if I'm not doing my best to advance myself, then I'm letting them down. Like they and it's like I said, and it's a strength and a weakness, because for a lot of us, it can be a burden. But at the same time, like, that's what drives me for sure. And like my own personal experience with being mismanaged in the healthcare system, and never wanting somebody to have to go through that, or having to deal with BS and people, just being mismanaged on the whole. So it being not about me makes it a lot easier for me to keep driving to be better,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. That's deep stuff.
I'm curious, because I had I'm not totally similar, but, an injury that I felt was mismanaged, and that's what kind of led me on the path to where I'm at. But I did, for a time, think of going into physical therapy. How did you end up, going down the path with chiropractic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, that's a really interesting question. Because of being mismanaged by physical therapists. specifically because of that, because of being, you know what, and I wouldn't even say I was mismanaged by chiropractors too. But during the process, the chiropractor, I truly felt that they cared and that they were open, honest, admitted when they didn't know what was going on, and spent just quite a bit more time with me. And so that automatically like created a bias for me to want to go into this profession rather than physical therapy. I had a bad outlook on physical therapists and what they could do and how their process worked, but that was because of the environment that I was working with physical therapists in. I mean, there's all sorts of great physical therapists out there, and I don't even look at what the title is. I look at the person and what their skills are now. Luckily, I mean, there was a whole bunch of PTs this weekend that were just amazing. It just so happened that I ran into a bunch of lackluster ones throughout my own mismanagement, and then I ran into some chiropractors that spent the time and really cared. So that was my bias, and that's where I'm going to be a chiropractor. Pew! There was nothing else. There was. I mean, looking back at it, I mean, there's good things about being a chiropractor, and there's also bad things in comparison when you're talking about being a PT. And there's also positive and negatives and what you can do there. But overall, I'm very satisfied because chiropractic has a very deep culture of exploring your skills outside of the curriculum. And enhancing yourself outside of the curriculum, and I think that had a huge influence into myself now and what I've learned over the past. Now that being said, that's a positive and a negative because there's a whole industry of people out there chomping at the bit to get money out of students to teach them things, whether they're good or bad But for what it is, I luckily got involved with the people I did. So yeah.
When was that timeline wise that you had that missile targeted for going the chiropractic route?
Well, I mean, the seed was planted when I was in Guam. I was doing Jiu Jitsu. That was pretty much just what I did. I worked so I could do Jiu Jitsu, and I was stationed out there. And then I hurt my back, and then I saw a chiropractor on base, and it helped me, and it just opened my eyes. I was like, wow, okay. It was the first time I ever left any health professional's office feeling better.
Wow.
You don't feel better when you leave a health professional's office for the most part. I had never experienced that. You go in there and you feel crappy. And they do something that helps you 3 days later, or 4 days later, 5 days later, whatever.
Right.
So that planted the seed. But then when I had a hip issue, when I was stationed in San Diego and I was training like very extensively and competing probably at least every 2 weeks in jiu-jitsu and really devoting all my time to it. That was kind of my life. I had a hip issue, man, and it just sidelined the hell out of me. I had no idea what was going on at that point. I had no education into the body. Jiu-jitsu is full of dogmatism when it comes to how to help yourself and help others. I mean, so I had no idea what to do. And then so it just went through a cascade. I mean, I spent like a year and some change going from practitioner to practitioner and trying to help myself. And that's where I, during that process, I mean, I was supposed to get out of the Navy shortly after that, and I was going to do jiu-jitsu full time, just give it a go. I was going to give it a year and a half or two. My then girlfriend and now fiance totally supported me too. Like she was like, yeah, I want you to try. I want you to give it a shot, and I just been getting over 8 years in the military. But that all changed. As soon as I went through that process, I was like, my mission is now to help somebody not deal with what I went through. And so that was when it was like, boom, like not only am I going to go do this, and granted, I had no college experience at this time, like zero. I graduated high school with a 1.66 GPA average.
Oh my God.
I was a really bad student growing up, really bad student. So the military was a big blessing for me. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kick this. I'm going to kick some ass.
Yeah, big time.
And yeah.
How old were you when you had the hip injury?
I was 26 when it first started.
And then, and so you had yet to get your master's in sport and exercise science, right?
I had nothing.
Yeah. Wow.
I had nothing. I mean, from academic standpoint,
right.
I had a high school diploma that I got because they knew I was going to the military,
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah. So, I mean, I put it this way, like before I got out of the Navy, I was scared to death of school, like scared to death. And the reason I was able to do good in school is because I scared to death of school.
Uh-huh.
I was practicing I had to practice short and long division, man. Like that's how I spent my nights getting out of the Navy because I was scared to death of school and failing, you know? I started in college at the ground level, you know, at medial everything, you know, but I took it all.
That's amazing. Wow.
But I think, or I wonder if also at that point, you appreciate the opportunity to be there, because I went from high school straight through to college, and I just felt like there were people who didn't realize what an awesome opportunity we had to be at a university.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Like I was not mentally prepared to go to school straight out of high school, to go to college. I didn't know what I want, didn't know who I was. Frankly, I didn't know how to apply myself in that sort of environment. So like I said, the Navy was a blessing, and being in the Navy and doing the work that I did, and then seeing more for myself and understanding what it took to get there. But what I also learned in school too is that those people that can go from high school and then can apply themselves well and go into college without having to go through that experience in the Navy or something like that, and work hard and continue to go and work on goals, impress me like above and beyond just as much as anybody else that went through a military experience or had a story where they came out rose out of the ashes. Because I mean, with all the things that are available for kids to lose focus and to be cool and to experience, like to have that kind of laser focus and go through and really have goals, know what you want at such a young age, that I admire as hell, because I didn't have that maturity level. It's amazing to me. So when I was going through my graduate program, and it's just like, dude, like, like I would tell the people that I was like, you don't understand how amazing you are. Like, you know, like think you're fantastic, you know, but then other people are like, experience, you know, but I mean, there's two sides to that. But
so getting the master's, was that just part of in your mind, a stepping stone for getting your license in chiropractic medicine, or was that fulfilling some other goal?
I did that concurrently.
Oh, wow.
That's hardcore.
Yeah. So it was a part of being the best I could be. You know, it was just a part of being the best and getting the most experience out of it. So my master's is in exercise and sports science, but the focus was in sports medicine.
Yeah.
So I mean, it totally was in line with what I was learning and what I was trying to do, and it filled some gaps.
Yeah,
So I'm not gonna lie, you know, it filled a lot of gaps. Like I feel like a lot of the stuff I learned in my master's program should be mandatory for the chiropractic curriculum. You know, but yeah, it was all in line with that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, wow. I only got 1 degree. Shoot.
Man, oh man, that's really cool.
But I think it really goes to show, I mean, yeah, developing that maturity, but when you have your mind set on a goal and you have the driving force behind it for you, which you've said is like, you know, I just want to help people and I want to prevent them from going through the same experience I had. Like that can be a great motivator to getting stuff done and getting to that next step to do what you want to do.
No, yeah, passion and purpose. I mean, that's if you don't have that, then it's going to be hard and it's going to be a grind in order to go through that. And I didn't have that after a while when I was fixing aircraft and going on deployments and working 18 hours a day in the Navy. And so it started wearing on me hard. When I got to school, this school stuff was easy. It was hella easy. Like I was having fun. Like looking back at it, like that stuff was easier than what I'm doing now. I mean, it's difficult. You got to put your stuff, you got to go through things. But I mean, going from working, I mean, ask somebody that has to work every day for somebody else.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like
really,
when you're in school, you're spending 100% time on, that's 100% me time, 100% me time.
It's a great way to reframe it.
You're working on your dream. Like it really, I mean, so when I was in school, I was obsessed and it was easy for me. Like I mean, not easy. It was easy to wake up early and show up and study my ass off. Like it was, I mean, like you said, it really comes back to motivation and your passion and your purpose to be there.
Mm-hmm. I wish I could go back in time and slap my 19-year-old self. This is you time. Come on. Take advantage of it.
I wish
if
I
I
just
go back to my 19-year-old self, I would have whooped my own ass hard.
I just wish I had like
Time machine.
a T-shirt that said like "This is you time," like for every day of the week, and like that was just like my school uniform and daily reminder. And I'm like looking at myself in the mirror, all like,
Like I said, I got lucky. I feel that I got lucky because of high school and how what I went through there, and then going through the military. That I was able to find that in myself. That I was able to see that, and so I mean, it was a blessing. I can't. I'm so thankful for that experience.
has is everything that you know now post your hip injury with jiu-jitsu, has that changed your mindset about jiu-jitsu in any way of like I guess maybe if you were to go back and like now, I guess let's say for the hypothetical person that wants to start jiu-jitsu next week, right? What would you maybe tell them, or how would you instruct someone differently with now what you know about the body to maybe prevent some of these issues down the line, or just be more movement prepared?
Yeah, it would. I would never tell somebody not to do it, but I would, but from a standpoint of athletic and movement development, motor skill development, and that's part of why I call my brand FlowForce Rehab is a balance between both worlds. My bias coming into jiu-jitsu, and part of the reasons why I probably was so passionate for it is because I was Gumby as hell, and that level of Gumby allowed me to succeed in certain areas of jiu-jitsu really well, and so I served that bias. But what I would and what I hope to in the future work towards in certain things with jiu-jitsu is getting people to really focus on overall athletic development and how important that is in applying no matter what it is that you're doing, and those are basics that I mean, it's jiu-jitsu, anything else, that basic level of motor skill development is it could help me so much in there. And that's what I said, like the jiu-jitsu community hasn't really caught on as much because it's not in a high school program and it's not in the Olympics and stuff like that. And so from a strength conditioning, from a motor skill development aspect and stuff like that, it's way behind the curve. And so everybody's just doing, random. It's a lot of randomness, and it's not a lot of people out there with a good scientific understanding of the body and performance that are involved, and that's at the highest level,
Yeah, interesting.
World champions. I mean, and that's I guess with a lot of sports, but world champions still don't. They're monsters and they're special,
right?
And then the kids that are coming up in the game see them and they see them doing these for what anybody that has any understanding of strength conditioning and sports performance would think, just ridiculous workouts, and then the world's doing them because of it,
Yeah.
Well, I think too, the people who are able to make it to that world champion top level, already they have a leg up on the rest of us normal people. But then to blanket apply whatever workout or training regimen or whatever that is for the rest of us who don't have the same kick-ass genetics, it's not fair.
Oh, no doubt. And that's a huge point. That's a huge point. Like as coaches or as people that are trying to work with others, like looking to the mutants for answers is just an awful way to go about doing things. I mean, like, yes, study them. Yes, understand what they're doing. Yes, try to see what they're doing. But you're going to find a lot more answers out of the average Joe on the grind than you are out of the mutant on the top of the podium. I mean, there's stuff to be learned from everywhere, but yeah. I mean, that's a big mistake that I think all fields make.
Yeah.
Huh.
I never thought about the point you made of how like jiu-jitsu is still very separate from more standardized programs. So therefore it hasn't been vetted for some of these other potentialities of progression or structure that maybe like high school, like wrestling has, for instance, because it's in a high school program, or it's an Olympic sport. And because like, my sort of thought process, not having any experience with jiu-jitsu and just hearing from others, was always like, oh, like, I think some people actually spin it that jiu-jitsu can be a good like movement prep, right? Because in contrast to other sports where it is maybe more of a narrow lane of movement, jiu-jitsu is asking you to really explore a lot of different ranges, some that you don't intend to be in, right? But
it has its strengths.
Yeah.
It has its strengths. Yeah.
But no, that's, I mean, it's just interesting, and it just goes to show again how, no matter how good any program is inherently, there is a requirement for somebody consciously understanding some of these fundamentals.
Balance. Yeah. That balance is key. Like, I mean, I tell you what, some of the most popular mobilization and body movement warm-up techniques and stuff that we went over this weekend, that's shit that we teach white belts in week 1.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's been popularized. There's a $900 course for it. The entire world is doing it, and it's just like, dude, look at this hip mob. This is amazing. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, damn, like, I do that for about 15 minutes every day before class. Like, this is just what we do. Like,
It's so true.
But so there are those strengths. There are those strengths. But at the same time, like, we've talked about this a lot, Jared, off this conversation. But it's about balance. Like I was Gumby as hell. Like, and Jared, you've got inherent flexibility in you as well. We don't need to be working on mobs. Like,
Right.
I've never had to work to get my palms on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, I've been able to do it my whole life. And I was born like that. I can do the splits still, and I've never practiced it. So like understanding that and working on weaknesses and identifying that in people and working on but I've never been inherently strong.
Right.
Yeah. And I enhanced my personal biases to avoid doing something that I wasn't inherently good at.
Right.
Which worked against me in the long run. So
yeah.
And I think that happens in every field. The people who excel to the top in the yoga world, where I spend most of my time, it's because they are hypermobile and super flexible, and they can get into all these weird bendy positions. But I think balance for sure, and understanding like, oh, it's not good just to be super bendy, but I also want to be strong so that I can sit right or, oscillate somewhere in the middle of that continuum.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, you're going to get the skinniest, bendiest yoga is going to talk about all the benefits of yoga and how wonderful it is. You're going to hurt your back if you go deadlift. I'm going to tell you right now, you should do yoga. And the strongest person is going to be like, that yogi is going to need me when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
That's just how they talk about it to each other, So yeah, it's.
Well, and then I guess my question for you, because I too was that super, super bendy person, and I started weightlifting, and it's changed everything. And the biggest fear I think the bendy people have is that they'll lose their flexibility by strength training. Mm-hmm. So how do you, or if you have, approached somebody who's like so entrenched in that dogma of whatever it is that they practice to maybe see the other side of the coin that could be beneficial for them?
I prove it to them with themselves. You show them and get them results inherently with it themselves. It depends on what the goal is and what they're doing, but show them the benefit right away in some certain way, and I think that's the best buy-in. Like, you can explain it to them all day long, but once you make it personal, I mean, there's no disputing it. There's no questioning it. It's going to help you. If you have somebody that's having trouble with the squat and all they care about is squats and lifting heavy and getting nasty under the bar and stuff like that, and you can see some sort, and you think perhaps that something can help them from a mobility standpoint or a movement standpoint, or like, a corrective or whatever, something that they don't really enjoy, and you do it and they're able to get under the bar and they feel an inherent difference right away. There it is. I mean, there's nothing, results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Do you train, in your facility, is it just the hands-on type of work that you do, or do you also have barbells to get people to buy in?
Yeah, we've got everything here. I mean, we've got 3 Kaiser racks. They're all hooked up to compressor. We've got pulley systems. We've got kettlebells from 4 kilograms up to 92. We've got it all. I mean, I work within the strength and conditioning facility, and I'm upstairs, and I have in my office. But yeah, it's the whole spectrum's here, and that's why I'm here in this environment, and I think that's important. From a practice standpoint, from hands-on, I mean, I mean, maybe I do have inherent biases, but to me, it's whatever gets results. I mean, if manual therapy is what needs to be done, then that's to get as results most efficiently and within the needs analysis of the person in front of me, then that's what I do. But more often than not, movement turns out to rule the day. And so there's some patients that will not get any manual therapy from me. There's some patients that will just get movement and rehab and exercise, and because that's that's more what they need, you know. So I don't ascribe to a technique. Like when a lot of people ask me this, like, you know, because chiropractic or anything like this, what's your technique, you know? And they expect me to say like, you know, like instrument assisted soft tissue and ART. Like that's what I do, you know. No, my technique is results, and that's my technique, because that's all I'm focused on. Like if I need to use, and I don't use this, but if I need to use like some kind of special rock that people assume is from Mars in order to get the results, that's true. But if it was available, I'd use it, because I'm focused mostly on the results and the broad spectrum of what this person needs and what their goals is. I mean, results based around the person's goal in front of me. It has nothing to do with what I'm trying to achieve, you know, but everything to do with the person in front of me. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious when you'll be cloning yourself so that you'll have an office in Los Angeles, please.
I've got plenty of clones up there. Not even of me. I got people that I'm cloning myself up from Los Angeles. But yeah, hit me up. I know. And so that's part of my process of trying to improve myself, is building a big network, and that's what I've done. So I'm involved with a lot of organizations, and I nerd out with people from all over the place. I go up and I help out the chiropractic school, Southern California University of Health Sciences. I go there. I've done a lecture there. I work closely with their Rehab to Performance Club. And yeah. So let me know. Yeah.
Tell us more behind the name FlowForce Rehab, and within that, I don't think actually we've published it yet, but Alex and I have recorded a whole episode about titles and you know what you call yourself as a coach, what's the name of your practice. And just the thought process behind that. And so I guess a more specific starting question is, you know, why FlowForce Rehab and not Ramos Chiropractic Care?
Yeah. So the idea for the name came from Bruce Lee, like the like water quote. And just the word flow. I mean, obviously, the word flow brings a lot of different ideas to the table. But FlowForce in particular is because it's going across the curve, you know, from both ends of the spectrum. Like there's the flow spectrum from a movement standpoint, where it's flow and it's beautiful and it can move and it's free. And then there's force, right? Like turning that flow into a force where it can do meaningful work when it calls for it. And it's about being malleable to the needs in the moment. And just like we were talking about, like being a bendy person and learning later on how important it is to work on your strength skills, and also those people that have a lot of force and need to work on flow. But that idea of being like water and able to meet the demands of what's necessary in front of you and working both sides of that skill. And using the word rehab really is it's because it from a business perspective, it filters to people that are going to be ready to move. So they see FlowForce Rehab. If they're looking to lay on my table for an hour, they're going to be like, okay, this is
that sounds like work.
Yeah, exactly. So frankly, that's the name rehab is in it, not just because that's only all out I do, because I do a lot of manual therapy when it's called for, but mostly so people know that they're going to be moving. Because you think chiropractic, and I get a lot of people, and then they think chiropractic, and they think that it's going to be manipulations and an ART.
Yeah, right.
But it could be farther from the truth. It's, whatever is necessary. So,
do you foresee a team of FlowForce rehabbers and constituents down the line, so that it kind of even transcends just one-on-one clinical treatment?
Oh, that's 100% the goal. Is to obviously make it bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I really want to do that's part of this process is chiropractic. They do internships, outside. They call them preceptorships, and they do it with outside clinics and stuff like that. And it's more of a shadowing process. And then you start maybe seeing patients a little bit, and they kind of work your way in there. But something that you learn from the strength and conditioning field is that they have legit set up curriculum-based internships. Right. And so that's something that I want to do. I love working with students and helping other people out. Like when I was in school, I was part of like all these different organizations. And that's what I did. I tried to help other students develop and learn and do good stuff too. And so I'm still involved in that kind of stuff now. I'm on the just to come back to that, I'm on the advisory committee for an organization called Rehab to Performance. That's based on working that spectrum between what is rehab and what is performance, and understanding that there's the lines blurred in the middle, and we have to meet and understand each other there. And so there's clubs all over the country and all kinds of different disciplines and whatnot like that. And I was really highly involved in that as a student. I'm involved a lot in that now. Learning from that experience and continuing just to help students, I want to make it, the goal is to have an internship developed with the curriculum, required readings, required meetings, required assignments and stuff like that, to really help people develop that are committed to doing so.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the idea, man. And
it's awesome.
also, to work with people from all angles,
Yeah.
So hopefully if I can get people, eventually if I'm deserving so to get like interns even from exercise science programs, that'd be cool too,
Yeah. Interesting. Beyond your, or rather, other than your coaching and practitioner hat, what does your current movement personal practice look like? When you're gonna get your maybe half an hour, 1 hour, 90-minute bend training session in. What is that currently consisting of?
Well, the warm up you are very well acquainted with, because you're doing it every day, and I gotta be doing what you're doing. So any program that I have somebody else doing, a piece of it's part of what I'm doing. Cool, because yeah. I'm still learning, and it's important for me to be going through that process,
Yeah.
Truth be told, my training age is rather young when it comes to lifts and strength training. And so that's mostly what I'm working on. And I keep it simple. I kind of ascribe to more of a Mike Boyle type of philosophy when it comes to it. So throughout the week, I want to make sure that I get my hip dominant, knee dominant, pushing, pulling, and a core movement every week, right?
Yeah.
With that in mind, I've been focusing it more around kettlebells because just because it's been fun. Just the basics, man. Squats, deadlifts, rows, and presses. That's really what it's looking like now. And then I probably throw in at least like one good, like real capacity type of workout per week, and it usually involves just high volume swings.
Cool.
Mixed with crawling or something like that. But that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm exploring with.
Yeah.
Frankly, I just got to get better at barbell stuff too. So I'm going to start going that route a little bit more here in the future. But that's where I'm at.
Awesome.
Mostly kettlebells.
All right, and then lastly, before we transition into our more rapid fire, I'm interested to hear you talk a little bit about some of the knee issues you have been having, and both like, how you would even describe that, what would be the diagnosis you'd give yourself, and then the other, if there's any sort of internal struggle you find with that, being the practitioner that you are and having all the tools that you have, and feeling maybe some resemblance of that imposter syndrome when you can't resolve your own issues.
Oh, no doubt. So right now, a couple months ago, I started dealing with a knee issue, like for no reason whatsoever. No reason known to me whatsoever. My knee started locking up. So in certain positions, my knee locks up and I can't extend it, and I can't extend it anymore. A bunch of apprehension. I don't know. It doesn't hurt whatsoever, but it just will not go. And my muscles also kind of understand that if it's going to extend, something bad's going to happen, so it won't let it happen. Then I got to do this weird maneuver that looks similar, for people that know this, to the Patrick Faber's test. It kind of looks like if somebody's trying to stretch their piriformis and they're laying on their back and they have their one heel over their knee and they're pulling their leg towards them. So that kind of stretch is like the position I got to get my affected knee into, and then I externally rotate my tibia and then extend from there, unlocks. I can do whatever the hell I want, no pain. It's really odd. More than likely, and I don't know for sure because I haven't had any imaging done, and yeah, I really don't know, but what it sounds like the most is like a meniscus flap kind of getting in the way and blocking, and then I have to unlock it that way. I don't know exactly what's going on, and I've asked a lot of friends about, like, I've had people assess me. One thing for sure is, as much as I enjoy, the empowerment thing when it comes to assessment and treatment, I am totally not, I open up and I allow an expert to assess me and do it, because when you're experiencing it yourself, it's totally different.
Yeah.
You're not as able to really get as much out of it than an outsider looking in. So I've had a couple of friends assess me and look at it. That's kind of what we come up with, but it sucks because I'm okay training. I can train whatever kind of like exercises. But I can't do jiu-jitsu right now because when I do, I can't do it the way I want right now. Is because when I do jiu-jitsu and I get in all these weird awkward positions, it locks up. The last time I trained, I was, I did probably like 6 or 7 rounds. And during that process, I had to stop in the middle of each round at least like 2 or 3 times, unlock my knee, and then go back to it. And it was just super frustrating. So I'm kind of frustrated right now with that.
Yeah.
But it's helped me to focus more on just lifting and working on that, and I need experience there too anyway. So
I think you are the perfect example of practicing what you preach, like 150%. So I think that's really awesome, and I super respect that, because I know that there are many, or I don't know, but I feel like there are many people out there who, say do this, but then behind the scenes they're not practicing the same stuff that they're telling others to do. Yeah. So thank you for practicing what you preach.
Thank you for holding up the torch.
I'm trying my best,
With that in mind, what is your biggest coaching or teaching pet peeve?
A lack of using personal bias in order to and losing focus on the individuality of the person in front of you that you serve. A lot of people focus on they think about what it is they do. Earlier, I was talking about people ask me what technique I use. Like that, and people that can tell you like, what technique do you do? And they say like, this is what I use. There's nothing wrong with that, that's what people like to do and stuff like that. But it's more like, what can I do for somebody else?
Right.
To me, my focus. So when somebody loses sight that the person in front of them is actually a unique little snowflake, there's a balance to that,
Yeah.
But when they lose sight of individuality and understanding of how unique everybody is, just let's ass to grass squats is just a perfect example of that.
Totally. Yeah.
And, and just that kind of stuff. When people lose focus on on the individuality of what's in front of them. Yeah. I mean, because essentially you're losing sight of the goals anyway, if that's the focus. And if you're not working to improve the goals, set goals that you should have helped the person that you're working with to achieve, then you're not doing your job.
Well said. Is there any topic, fitness, nutrition, or psychology related that has you most on the fence in your current practice?
So what does on the fence mean? I was going to ask you that. What do you mean by on the fence?
Yeah, so like that you're just unsure about, like you're still undecided, you know, you're kind of, and you're like, you don't really know, you know, what the correct resolution is. I guess like for me, you know, something, and an example that I think about is the whole icing, you know, should we ice? Should we use heat? You know, like,
Right.
I mean, I remember when Kelly Starrett back in like 2011 or 12 came out with his videos, and I forget the guy's name that he was working with, that was kind of his reference for why he changed his stance. You know, like there was a lot of lashback, you know, to the whole, like, you know, don't ice, type of thing. So, you know, I'm curious if there's something similar to that, or one, you know, you've currently been, researching, or that has just come across your table that, you know, you're kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
I would say all of them, man. Like all of them. Ice topic, the ketogenic diet topic, the pain science topics, I mean, everything, dude.
Yeah.
All of it. I really can't pick one right now that I'm so on the fence with, because I'm on the fence with all of them. And you know, I guess speaking more clinically to what I should be thinking about instead of ketogenic diets and stuff like that. It would be just influence of the nervous system in overcoming in the rehab process, in manual therapy and getting patients better. Like, and you know me, Jared, like I tend to think in terms of the nervous system because I think that's my job. I'm a steward of the nervous system and helping somebody overcome pain and progressing, you know, from and that, because that's my way in, whether I like it or not. You know, it ain't through muscles, it ain't through fascia, it ain't through bones. You know, it's through the interaction of the nervous system with those things. And so, just that topic, I'm not on the fence about it.
Yeah.
I just am learning and learn new things and trying to get better at it all the time. And I don't know the balance yet, and I don't think I ever will.
Yeah,
cool with that. That's probably where I'm at the most right now.
I dig it. Is there an element, characteristic, or personality trait that you bring to coaching, mentoring, leading, that people would least expect or maybe see as odd if they didn't know you more?
I think there's probably a lot of things that people consider odd.
Yeah.
You know? But I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because I think it's all totally normal.
Right.
I think this question is probably more geared towards what would you say, Jared? Like, I wouldn't know. Like, you know.
That's interesting.
My fiance says that a lot of times I give too much of myself. You know, that could be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But I would say, I really don't know, man. I really don't know. Because I still haven't found myself as a coach or a practitioner or anything like that. Yet. So, yeah.
It's so honest. I appreciate it.
But I would say that I try to be myself and I try to bring myself to the table, you know, but that's the thing. Like, I'm changing. I'm constantly trying to change myself. So
yeah. That's also right. Yeah. That's a balance. Is any extracurricular education you'd recommend for coaches out there? Reading, video, seminar, any kind of personal practice you think is important for people to invest some time in?
If I'm painting with a broad brush, you know, that would be applicable to all people. I mean, it would just go back to personal development and communication. taking care of yourself, understanding goals and outcomes and achievement through yourself, but also, I mean, that only translates to how you're able to help people.
Right.
And probably even more so in communication. Communication is something that I'm working on nonstop. I mean, I can't pinpoint one thing because it would really depend on the person and their goals and what industry they're in. But for me right now, like books like Ryan, everything from Ryan Holiday, I'm kind of obsessed with right now.
Yeah. Me too.
Trying
to get him on the podcast. So
I'm reading it too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I did Obstacle is the Way First, and then Ego is the Enemy, and I got Daily Stoic now.
Yeah.
And then I'm just kind of like working my way into like the whole Stoic kind of deal, and yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of, I would say for me, that's where I'm learning the most right now. But I'm also trying to read more books about coaches, about successful coaches, and just people in general that have overcome things and how they've handled it. So yeah, this is one that I'm working through. Resilience, Eric Greitens. This is one that I'm working through right now. That's been really helpful as well. It's kind of in the same line with those other books as well. So yeah, I would say paint with a broad brush.
Yeah.
That's, as of right now, that's my bias.
Man, Ryan Holiday, it's so cool. He's so, in the grand scheme of things, young. He's like 29, and God, the stuff that he's put out in the past couple of years, like it has really reached so many people. It's really amazing.
Remember what we were talking about earlier about like, practicing what you preach and all that kind of crazy stuff? Like, imagine if we judged Ryan Holiday on his deadlift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't even know what he deadlifts, but he's smaller than I am.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a pretty weak deadlift, but like imagine if we were to judge Ryan Holiday on his ability to lift or something like that. Imagine how much we miss out on.
Well, I think a part of that though is like Ryan Holiday is not out there like claiming that he has an awesome deadlift or claiming I think more correctly to that would be like, for me would be not necessarily judging, but analyzing how Ryan Holiday puts to practice the Stoic philosophy that he preaches. And actually what I really appreciate about Ryan Holiday, and one of the reasons I really want to get him on the podcast is all the interviews I've heard with him is he is very honest, very authentic, and the sequence of obstacles the way and ego is the enemy is a really great showing of his personal experience of like, hey, I wrote this book, Obstacles the Way, with all these great principles for overcoming hardship. And then during that time before he wrote Ego is the Enemy, he went through a ton of hardship. Then that's what sort of morphed Ego is the Enemy. So it's a really good example of, even being in the trenches and contemplating and ruminating on all these principles about resiliency and still like, coming or facing some pretty tough stuff and not being able to overcome it. But finding a way to be in service of that with, hey, another book that helps a lot of other people. So,
right. Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. That's what I mean. Like, but some people like, they will legit judge him on like, does that even
yeah.
Like, like that's the be all end all of it. And that's just what I mean by it. Like, yeah. And so that's kind of what I'm busy with, like,
Yeah, no, it's true. It is interesting, especially when I think you're right. Like in this Instagram culture, if, someone puts up, and I've been guilty of that, like just with certain, like if actors, that are training for like certain movies and stuff, and I see some pull up and I'm like, oh, gosh, come on, Henry Cavill, like super, or like Ben Affleck, like doing his pull ups in Batman. He's got this whole like, chicken necking thing going on. I'm like, come on, Bruce Wayne.
In real life, Batman would never pull up like that.
Yeah,
I mean, let's
no.
be honest.
Let's be
honest.
Real life, Batman would never do something so silly.
I would. We know that like the comic book creators had more sense than that.
Yeah. No doubt.
Well, thank you
so much. Yeah.
much. This has been awesome and enlightening, and it's just always so great to be able to talk to people who have passion and purpose with what they do, and it's so inspiring for me personally, and I know for all of our listeners. So thank you for taking the time today to chat with us. Where can people find more information and connect with you online?
FlowForceRehab.com. I'm going to be starting to promote that a little bit more here soon. FlowForceRehab.com is my my website and my blog. I have a bunch of blogs written. I haven't posted them yet because I've kind of been working on the website. And also at FlowForce Rehab on Instagram, as well as Snapchat. And on Facebook, you can just look me up as Benjamin Ramos on there, and then FlowForce Rehab on Facebook as well.
It is a beautiful website.
It is a really nice website. Yeah,
it's a very nice website.
Thank you.
Everybody go check it out.
But I also want to thank you guys for having me on here. It's an honor to be even considered for something like this, and it's not what I do it for, but I really appreciate it. And doing these things help me learn and help me like look into myself and stuff. So it's a really big honor to do this, and really respect what you guys are doing.
Thanks, man. Well, and you can listen to it 1,000,000 times once it goes live, just over and over and over again.
You're gonna get 100 listens by the end of the night, and it's probably gonna be my mom. Just saying.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Moms and dads listen to this show too.
If the only downloads we get are from the parents of our guests, like I will consider myself a success.
Victory. Yes.
On a more morbid note, we're not getting any guests on whose parents are not alive.
We need the views.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All right. Well, till next time. Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. If you have enjoyed what you listened to, head over to iTunes and leave us a review. More information on each episode and the podcast in general can be found at behindthepodiumpodcast.com. We'll catch you next time.